The 2023 college football season had a lot of highs and lows. This past season was basically the end of an era. We've seen the Final 14 playoff, and we've seen the last college football season before the 12-team playoff starts and the super conferences start. We have seen teams move around everywhere, and the Pac-12 basically got completely destroyed with only two teams being left in it, which are Washington State and Oregon State, who have ultimately been left out of the conference realignment conversation. It was an incredible college football season, but next year is going to change the landscape of college football forever. And with the news of Nick Saban announcing his retirement, college football will truly feel like a completely different sport. There's a lot of negatives with all the money involved and the travel these teams will have to do to play in these games, but regardless of the negatives, I'm ready for the next college football season. I'm ready to see the start of a new era of college football. But before we get there, we must go through the off-season, but I'm also going to look back at the incredible 2023 college football season, and in this video, I will be basically recapping all of the 2023 college football season and giving my thoughts. But before I get into this video, let me remind everyone to like the video and also subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And if you guys love college football, then you will love this channel because we post daily college football content and we basically cover everything on this channel. So definitely consider dropping a sub. But without further ado, let's get into the video. And to start off, I'm kind of just going to go week by week through the college football season, talking about each week and talking about different teams and basically talking about the biggest moments from the season. And let's start back all the way at week 0. Nothing really important happened, but we seen overrated USC beat San Jose State 56-28, and the committee had USC ranked in the top 10 for way too long. And that defense was horrible this year. But I do expect their defense to be at least average next season, and they should be decent in the Big Ten, but it will be a tough first year for a team like USC. Now, week 1, we've seen the start of the most overhyped team in college football history. You remember that time when Deion Sanders and Colorado beat a ranked TCU team to start the season, and there were people betting on Shedeur Sanders to win the Heisman? Oh boy, was that a fun time as a college football fan. Jokes aside, hate Colorado or love Colorado, 99% of people were tuning in to Colorado football at the start of the season. And not that many people expected Colorado to beat TCU. We also seen Oklahoma and Ole Miss score 73 points, and then Oregon drop an 81 burger on Portland State. That's crazy that we got all of that in 1 week. And then of course we seen the crazy upset Duke had, beating Clemson 28-7, and basically killing any hype Clemson had. And then the highlight of week 1 had to be Florida State's win over LSU in dominant fashion. Week 2 was a pretty exciting week of college football. We seen one of the biggest moments of the season where Texas beat Alabama by double digits in Tuscaloosa, and ultimately both those teams ended up making the playoffs, so that was pretty big. We also seen Texas A&M give up 48 points to Miami and lose, and they showed why they should never be ranked to start the season again. And of course we seen Colorado continue the hype train after beating Nebraska by 20 points. But week 3, I believe we seen the week where that Missouri kicker kicked like a 62-yard field goal to beat ranked Kansas State in a very entertaining finish. We also seen Georgia and Alabama struggle to beat mediocre competition, and everyone was like, oh my god, the SEC sucks this year. But they both ended up winning, and week 3 was actually when Jalen Milroe was benched for Alabama, and that game against South Florida was horrible. And of course, you can't talk about week 3 without mentioning the most overhyped game of all time between Colorado and Colorado State. I'm not a Colorado hater, I just think it's hilarious how high people were on this team. And I'm not even gonna lie, I was kinda in on the hype train at the start of the season. But to be honest, this college football season was really the first season I became a true college football fan. And this is the year that actually made me start making videos for you guys as well. But week 4, we seen the end of the Colorado hype train when Oregon dominated Colorado. So I don't know if I have anything else to say about Colorado in this video, but it was fun talking about you guys, but bye-bye. We also seen that ugly and boring game between Ohio State and Notre Dame, but it ended up being a close one, in which Ohio State won it 17-14. We seen Florida State beat Clemson in a pretty fun overtime game, which basically made a lot of people forget about Clemson after they had 2 losses. But next up was week 5, and week 5 actually had one of the most exciting games all season, when Ole Miss beat LSU 55-49. I'm telling you right now, watch out for Ole Miss next season. Week 5, we also seen Georgia scare everybody with their performance against Auburn. Everybody was like, oh, Georgia isn't good anymore. But at some point, they finally got their offense going. But Georgia had question marks at the beginning of the season. Week 5, we also had the game day appearance between Notre Dame and Duke. Duke was very hyped up, and they were also undefeated, but they came up short in this game. And after this game, they kind of went downhill, and Riley Leonard got injured, so it was difficult for the second half of the season for Duke football. We seen Washington slip away from Arizona as well. We seen a lot of closer games that week. But week 6, we seen the Red River rivalry between Oklahoma and Texas, and that was one of the craziest games all year. It started with like multiple turnovers and special teams issues in just the first quarter, and it came down to a drive where Dillon Gabriel in Oklahoma scored to win the game. And Dillon Gabriel was at the top of the Heisman race after that, but unfortunately Oklahoma fell off after that. We also seen Mario Cristobal lose to Georgia Tech. You guys remember that fumble. I'm not even going to talk about that. But we also seen Louisville dominate Notre Dame, which shocked a lot of people, including me. But I mean, what do you expect? It was Notre Dame. There were a lot of crazy shenanigans at week 6. But for week 7, we seen a lot of action. We seen the incredible first game between Washington and Oregon, which was one of the best games all season. We also seen overhyped USC get completely deleted by Notre Dame. They made Caleb Williams look like a freaking middle school quarterback. It was insane. Now let's not put the blame on Caleb Williams, because all around, Notre Dame just dominated that whole USC team, and USC did not have a good defense, but you get the point. We also seen ranked Washington State lose 44-6 to a rising Arizona team, and we seen one of the more weird games all season, when Pitt beat Louisville 38-21, and they got like a lot of their points from defensive turnovers. But on to week 8, we seen the national title runner-up, who was Washington, play Arizona State, and they won 15-7 and had to sneak out a win in the fourth quarter. That was definitely one of the weirdest games all season. But that's just how Washington has played this year. They play down to competition, but they also play up to competition. We also seen Virginia beat a top 10 North Carolina team, and that might just be the biggest upset of the college football season, because at the time, Virginia was one of the worst teams in college football. They were horrific. We also seen both Texas and Oklahoma slip away from USC and Houston back when Oklahoma and Texas were both legitimate playoff contenders. A lot of questionable games happened that week, and people were basically left speechless after everything that went down, and I did not know what to say about that week because it was crazy. But week 9 continued with all the craziness because we seen the game between Oklahoma and Kansas where there were dirty conditions and weather delays. It was insane, but ultimately Kansas ended up upsetting Oklahoma and basically knocking them out of the college football playoffs. We also seen Arizona continue their rise after beating a ranked Oregon State team. We also seen the game day appearance between Oregon and Utah turn into an obliteration when Oregon won 35-6 in Utah. At this point, everybody knew Oregon was legit, but in the end, I guess they were not legit enough to beat Washington, and they lost to Washington again, which I'll get to later. Nothing much for week 9, but that Oklahoma-Kansas game was crazy. Week 10, we saw Alabama beat LSU and really prove themselves as a legit playoff contender. We also seen Oklahoma State upset Oklahoma, and Ollie Gordon was playing insane up to this point. I remember he had like back-to-back 250-yard rushing games. I don't think he had a crazy game against Oklahoma, but he played solid. We seen Missouri give Georgia a run for their money and show why they were legit. Even if they lost to Georgia, they kept it close. We also seen a very fun overtime game between Texas and Kansas State, in which Texas snuck out a win. Oh yeah, I guess I should mention we also seen Army beat Air Force 23-3, which was very weird to me because I expected Air Force to make a New Year's 6 bowl game. Week 11, we saw Penn State and Michigan play, and Michigan basically controlled that game against Penn State, and they didn't throw the ball once in the second half. They ran the ball down Penn State's throats. And I also forgot to mention that Penn State came up short against Ohio State just a few weeks before this game, but nothing new, just Penn State being second or third best. But I mean, at least they tried. We also seen Georgia show why they are on a completely different level when they beat Ole Miss 52-17. Nothing much to week 11. Week 11 had some interesting games, but nothing was crazy. Now, week 12 had a lot of ups and downs. It started with Michigan playing Maryland and almost losing, but pulling out a win in the end. We also seen Arizona completely dominate Utah. We seen another fun Iowa game as they beat Illinois in a very high-scoring game, 15-13. What a game that was. But we also seen Washington beat Oregon State on the road in very wet weather. But the highlight of week 12, well, I guess I shouldn't say highlight because let's just say it was bad, and it was the opposite of a highlight. But what I'm talking about was the Jordan Travis injury, which ultimately led to Florida State being left out of the playoffs and getting completely destroyed by Georgia 63-3. This was definitely not a fun moment as a college football fan to see an injury like that, and I do feel a little bit bad for Florida State fans because you guys had a great season up to this point, and you guys were one of the best teams in the country, but losing Jordan Travis really hurt you. But how about rivalry weekend, which was week 13? We seen Oklahoma beat TCU 10-7. I'm just kidding. They put up 69 points and beat TCU 69-45 in one of the craziest games all season. We also seen Oregon and Texas basically dominate their opponents on Friday night. Week 13 was crazy, and if you thought that was it, then you're wrong, because do you guys remember that Hail Mary Alabama had to beat Auburn? Only Alabama can win a game like that. Auburn didn't send any pressure on Jalen Milroe, and Auburn basically choked seriously bad in that game. We also seen Washington win another one-possession game after beating Washington State by 3, in which they went for it on like their own 30-yard line and got it. Then they won the game with a walk-off field goal. Michael Penix Jr. was losing it in that game. But of course, you can't talk about rivalry weekend without bringing up Ryan Day losing 3 straight to Michigan. Michigan's defense was just the real deal this year, and Michigan owns Ohio State as of now. But next year, Ohio State's returning a lot of talent, and Michigan's losing a lot of talent. So maybe Ohio State will finally beat Michigan. But next up, we had Conference Championship Week, and this had to be basically the biggest week of college football because it led to controversy, but it also led to some amazing games between Oregon and Washington and Georgia and Alabama. And as of now, Alabama basically owns Georgia and Washington basically owns Oregon. But that's basically all there is to say. But jokes aside, the future of Oregon and Georgia is looking a lot better anyways, so you guys should recover from those losses. But the team that refuses to recover and move on is Florida State, because they ended up going undefeated after beating Louisville 16-6 in the ACC Championship, and then they got left out for Alabama. I feel like fans feel like Florida State got snubbed, but all I gotta say is 63-3. But of course, before we talk about bowl season, we have to mention the game of America between Army and Navy. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I watched that game, but Army did end up winning at 17-11. Navy scored all 11 points they had in that game in the fourth quarter, so that's an interesting fact. But let's move on to bowl season. And this bowl season may have been underwhelming to some because of the opt-outs and transfer outs. It's getting worse every year, but the start of the 12-team playoffs will make it a lot better next year. But we did see some teams on the rise like Arizona and Missouri winning pretty big bowl games, and we've seen teams like Ohio State and Florida State score 3 points, which wasn't very pretty, and they were in New Year's 6 bowl games. Now, I'm not going to talk about every bowl game, but the game between Clemson and Kentucky was a fantastic game, and Clemson won it 38-35. We also seen Ole Miss get a win against Penn State, and they are another team with a lot of potential. And then we seen another blowout when Oregon blew out Liberty 45-6. And of course, instead of us getting Liberty versus Florida State and Oregon versus Georgia, we seen 2 blowouts in New Year's 6 bowl games. We also seen Tennessee quarterback put on a heck of a performance and helped Tennessee to shut out Iowa 35-0. But ultimately, this season led to the last 14 playoff that we will ever have. We've seen 2 incredible playoff games that came down to missed 4th down conversions close to the end zone. And Texas and Alabama both came so close to winning that game, but ended up losing. And then of course we realized that Michigan's defense was a real deal, and Michigan showed why defense wins championships, and they basically shut down that Washington offense in the national championship. And that was a wrap to the season. And now I'm left here just waiting for the start of next season. And we all are, but we got a long wait. And that's why I'm here to post daily college football content for you guys. So if you guys enjoy my content, consider liking the video and also subscribing to the channel. But also don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. But this video has been long enough, so that's going to do it guys, and peace out.